My name is Abhishek Jain and welcome back to the Shell Script tutorial series part 4. Let's quickly do the recap what we had covered in the previous video. So in the previous video we understood what is variable in Shell, how we need to define it, and how can we use it and when to use it, right? So let's quickly define a topic for today's video, what we are going to cover. The very first thing which I wanted to cover is the interesting behavior of variables when we have spaces in between the value of variable. Then we're gonna see what happens when we use undefined variable. When I say undefined variable means we don't define any value, we don't pass anything, and still we are using, then how shell behaves. Then we are going to see few mistakes which most of the programmer or beginners make, that actually makes debugging of shell script very complicated. So let's quickly jump into the demo part and just cover all these topics with some demo. Okay, so to do that, what I did is I have already created a small script that is echoing just a value of variables. Okay, so here I have one variable name is message war, and the value of message war is a war demo, and we are just echoing that, right? So let's see what happens if I just run this. So it just simply gave echo the message which we have assigned to that particular variable, right? So if I just make some changes in that script, let's say I have this var demo and I have, let's say, I space, I want to say var demo print, let's say var demo text message. Let's see what happens if I have this value. Okay, let's see how shall behave in this situation. See, now we are getting an error which says is text message command not found, right? Why this is considering as a text message command? So if I just go back to the script again, okay, so whenever you have a space in a value which you want to assign to any variable, you have to keep in mind that you have to use double quotes to ensure that the shell should be able to understand this as a single string, rather than, because as I mentioned, that it's a command line interpreter, right? Shell is, whenever you, whatever the shell script you write, it actually runs whatever the line you mention in that as a command, right? So message var equal to something, it is considered one value, it is assigning that, and then it is trying to execute a text message, right? And that's the reason it was throwing that error, the test message command not found, right? So now if I just make these changes and if I save it and I run this again, let's see. So now this time we are getting a same string which we have assigned, but this time it is in a double quote. So this is what you have to keep in mind, right? Now the next thing which we want to see is what happens, suppose I have this message war, and let's say I want to echo dollar message war, and if I run this, let's say I want to make this 1, which is not yet defined. Let's see what happens, how shall understand this line, because these are small things which I observed that beginners makes problem, and it's really hard to just debug a shell script, especially when it is very lengthy and it is having a lot of code inside the shell script. So see, first variable is defined fine, it is just showing the value correctly, but the next line is empty. So what happens is, if you have any undefined variable, then shell assign an empty value or an empty string to that, and it just reflect that, right? But in other programming language, you would have understood that if you have to define any variable or you want to use any variable, before using it you have to define that, right? So in Java, C#, if you are utilizing, if you want to use any variable, you have to define that, because there is no default behavior which that particular programming language can assign. But in shell, this behavior has a pros, this behavior has a cons as well. The cons is, if you are using any undefined variable inside the shell script, and that may hamper, you know, the execution of a shell script, and it would be very difficult for you to why that is happening, right? Because if you are getting any kind of error, then it is very easy to debug. But if you are not getting any error, everything looks fine, but you know, expected behavior or the result you are expecting, that is not correct, then it becomes very hard, and you have, in that case, you have to debug your logic or a program interactively. So that is what we're gonna see how we can do that, right? So if I want to make this script more robust, in case if there is any undefined variable I'm using, then it should throw some kind of error, so that I would be knowing where I'm making a mistake. So for doing that, you have to use a set command. Don't worry about this. The set command is something for which I will be creating a video where I'll be providing how to use it. But for now, you just understand set is a command, and there is one option with set is -u. So if you use this line inside your shell script, what it's gonna do is it's gonna tell shell if there is any variable which is not yet defined and it is being used by the shell script, then you have to throw an error message in a way that user can understand. So if I save it and if I run it again, just see now, instead of getting a blank line, we are getting this message wow, an unbound variable, which actually tells us this variable is not yet defined, it is not having any value, but you are utilizing that particular command, right? So this set -u is very important, and I would always recommend you always use it. There are a few more options which you have to use along with you. We're going to talk about this when we are going to actually talk about the set command, right? So that's it from my side for this particular video. So now we understood what happens when we have a space in between the value of any variable. And yeah, I just forgot to talk about one more point, where what all mistakes, you know, beginners and the programmer makes, right? So for that matter, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to comment this set -u, and let's say I have this variable message var1, right? If I just put here, and if I just put equals to, and I give, let's say, var demo text message 1. Okay, let's see what happens. And if I run this again, see, message var1 command not found. Why it is looking why it is considered message var1 as a command, right? So let's quickly revisit our script again and see what mistake I had made, right? So if you will see here, and I think I just mentioned this in a previous video as well, whenever you want to define a variable, right, you have to make sure there is no space in between, you know, the equal assignment sign and the variable name. So this is where you are making a mistake. So if I just remove this, it will work fine, right? What happens is, as I mentioned, that shell is always gonna be considering everything as a command, right? So that's the reason message var1 then space. So message var1 is something which shell is understanding as a command, but this message var1 not yet defined as a command, right? Because it's not a built-in function. So this is what something user has defined for a script, right? So this time if I will just save it, then we are good, right? So these are the things which I just wanted to cover in this video. That's it from my side. If you have any feedback or any comment, please feel free to put that in a comment section. And if you have any feedback to just make these videos more easy to understand and more simpler to explain, then please do put that please put that in a comment section, so that I'll try to just improve on my upcoming videos. In our next video, definitely we will be covering more about, you know, what all types of variables we have, and especially I wanted to cover a system variables, yeah, and then we're gonna cover the special shell variable, which actually very handy and very helpful for us when we actually define a shell script which we are going to use in a production on a real-time environment. So as always, keep learning and stay healthy. And if you really like this video, please subscribe, and if you want to share with somebody who can just take the help, or who can, or this series can be helpful for him, please do share with your friends and your groups as well. Thanks a lot.